We're live.
Excellent. Okay. We'll go ahead and admit all. Here we
Trying to figure out why
go.
it won't let me
Go ahead
talk.
and start the recording. The floor is yours, Stephen Bergson.
Thank you very much. And the March 2nd, 2026 meeting of the Oregon Country Fair Board of Directors will come to order. And we'll begin with announcements. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand in chat. John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I was going to say this during meeting evaluation at the end of the last board meeting, but we ran out of time, so I'm going to say it now. I've observed that when several of our members, and indeed some of our board members, speak about business in front of the board, that they resort to saying that something is unkind to so-and-so or disrespectful to some committee when they have no concrete input. In my opinion, these are personal attacks that should stop. And they seem to illustrate a fundamental misunderstanding of the role of the board and the responsibilities of directors. Directors have a duty of care to the organization, not just to individuals, not just to the 0.5% who are on committees, but to all 20,000 of us. Others may be more skilled at this than I am, but I find it impossible to make decisions that make everybody happy. My job as one of your directors is to get the best result for the entire organization, even if it means that not everybody gets what they want. Making these decisions, knowing that personal attacks will follow, is often emotionally difficult, but working in the best interest of the Oregon Country Fair is the kindest and most respectful thing that I can do. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I will say that that's really input. If you can do input rather than an announcement. Announcement's supposed to be events and things that have happened and so forth. LT?
Well, I'll wait for input.
Okay. Teresa? Teresa?
Thank you. I'm on my little phone here and I have to get to what I'm saying. And I'm really sorry about that. Here we go. Okay, I'm the liaison for the endowment committee, and I believe this is the time that I make the announcement about their funding. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I'd just like to say it was an incredible pleasure to work with the endowment committee. What a great group of people. Super excited. I love being that liaison. So hopefully that gets to keep happening. The Bill Wooten Endowment Fund Committee met for the annual grant making meeting and awarded a total of $20,000 in grants to nonprofit organizations serving youth in the fair's neighboring Fern Ridge region. The funding, come on, phone. Tangible, oh, this is not going to work. I'm so sorry. When I turn it so I can read it, it goes away. We have awarded $4,000 to Culture Jam, $5,300 to the Elmira Elementary School, $4,000 to the Lane Arts Council, and Smart Making a Reader Today, the SMART program, and Woodcrafters, another $4,000 chunk. It was just incredible to see the applications and to read these amazing things that are happening in our community. And I am going to try to get this out to people a little bit a better way if people in the fair community would like to support these things that we at the fair are supporting. I'm not on a little phone in Mexico, so I'm not doing this very well. I apologize, but it was just an incredibly fabulous experience to work with these amazing people. So good work to the endowment committee and really good work to these amazing organizations that are creating art and poetry and creativity in the local community.
Thank you. AJ?
Yes, I'm sad to announce that our membership secretary, Jeffrey Ramus, has resigned. And thank you for your service to this organization. Jeffrey was instrumental in helping us bring voting onto our new database, and was instrumental in the transition from our old school way of elections to our new approach. and hopefully that will continue to serve us in the future as far as getting more people to vote. So thank you, Jeffrey, and I wish you well on your future endeavors.
Thank you. Last call for announcements. If you have an announcement, raise your hand in chat. Last call. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the minutes. Is there any objection to adopting the minutes for the January 26th, 2026 meeting and the February 2nd, 2026 meeting as submitted? Any objection to adopting those minutes as submitted? Seeing none, both sets of minutes are adopted by unanimous consent and we'll go on to agenda review. Is there
Wait,
any motion? Yes?
Sorry, I forgot I had one more announcement. I'm
Okay.
sorry. The board met in closed session with the backup managers as well as the staff, and we had a training on, I believe that was the 9th, and it is a part of our training series that we're doing on inclusion and equity. I just wanted everybody to know that we finished the first series of it, and we will be doing another series later on this month.
Okay, thank you. Paxton, is this related to agenda review? You're muted.
Yes, it is.
What would you like to do?
I would like to move to remove the first item on old business of, not first item, I mean the second item, the appointment, the board replacement appointment. I would like to remove that from the agenda.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, moved by Paxton and seconded by Indigo to remove the appointment of Felicia Kirsch to the OCF board seat vacated by George Braddock. So now this is simply discussion about removing it from the agenda, not about the merits of the motion itself. Is there any member input on removing this item from the agenda? Please raise your hand in chat. Again, not about the merits of the motion, but just about removing it. Heather.
I'd just like some clarification. So if that is removed from the agenda, then it is just gone.
It would be just gone from the agenda, no longer motion. The subject, if it comes up, would be eligible for the member input, but not for before the motion because the motion would be removed. Is there any member input on removing that item from the agenda? Last call. Jeffrey Ramus.
Yeah, it's most certainly should be removed. It's just simply not a fair thing for the membership.
Okay, thank you. Please only hands in chat. And is there any other member input? Last call for member input. Christine, did you want to speak?
I have an email from Arna about her opposition to this movement, so I'm certain that she would support removing it as well.
Okay, thank you. Heather.
Sorry, I should have clarified after my question was answered. Yes, I support removing it from the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other member input on removing this from the agenda? Last call. We'll go to board discussion. Paxton.
Well, I wish.
Hang on. Let me let Jonathan Pincus speak. He raised his hand late.
Sure, go for it.
Late. John, go ahead.
I also support removing it from the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Paxton.
I'm finding it a little difficult because, well, the reason I want to remove it from the agenda is I think it's bad practice for the fair. For the years we have done elections, we have not done interim replacement candidates. We generally let things sit to the election series, and that's what, by removing it, this would force all the candidates to run in the normal election series in October. and go through the candidates forum and the regular candidate manual, which I think is a way of keeping the membership enfranchised. And I think it's really, really important that the membership be able to fully vote on all of the board members. And I think that that is my reason for this. I have several other reasons why I think this is not a good move, but it sounds like I'm going to be constrained from going through these because I have a whole list of them.
Yeah, so it's not a good motion to have on the agenda, and we want to limit discussion of the substance of the motion unless the motion ends up being on the floor. Kristen, we're in board discussion now, so there isn't any more member input. Teresa.
Thank you. I don't really like this, what feels unusual way of, if you're opposed to a motion, then let's talk about that during the motion. But making a motion to remove it and then we're not allowed to talk about it is talk about stifling conversation. It's just, I'm sorry, I completely baffled by this, what feels underhanded way to not allow a free, open discussion on an actual motion. So I'm absolutely opposed to this system. If you don't like a motion, then you vote against it. You don't remove it.
So I will say there are a variety of ways to move forward, and yes, you can, if the motion stays on the floor, the merits of the motion can be debated. There's reasons to want to make an adjustment to the agenda. They may or may not apply to this issue. That's basically what we're discussing. Sandra.
So I'm a little unclear about what we are now discussing. Is it just, should we remove?
We're trying to limit discussion of the merits of the motion and focus only on whether or not the motion should be removed from the agenda.
So do the merits of the motion only have to do with the candidacy of the person who's being recommended for appointment?
It's, I guess the goal here is that the question of whether or not to remove it from agenda should not be a really protracted conversation. So either you think it should be removed or you think it should be kept. You could say because and give some reasons for it, but we just don't want to get into an extended debate about whether or not to keep the motion on. Does that make sense?
It does.
I think you could say, I think she's a valid candidate. I think it's a good move, et cetera, but try to just limit the conversation to the merits of removing it or not.
Okay, so I am definitely not in favor of removing this motion. I will not vote to approve to remove the motion. I think that we have a great candidate here. And I think some of the arguments that I've heard against being able to select it is the fact that they're talking about precedent and our bylaws. And so I'm going to start off a little bit with this, with what I have, and you can tell me if this is inappropriate, Stephen. Our bylaws explicitly allow the board to appoint a director when a vacancy occurs. The question isn't whether we did so in one prior instance. The question is whether the bylaws permit it now. I'm concerned that the discussion is being reframed around precedent rather than what the bylaws actually authorize. The argument being made is that because we did not appoint someone one time, we are now prohibited from doing so. This is just not how it works. Past discretion does not eliminate present authority. The bylaws authorize it, and we retain the authority unless we amend them. This is also important to remember that in prior situations, alternates stepped into vacancies. The functionality kept the board at full strength. So it's not accurate to suggest the board declined to fill vacancies as a matter of principle. For me, the real issue is board stability. We have a lawful mechanism to maintain full board capacity, and we should use that based on our current governance needs, not selective reinterpretation of history. We cannot make up process such as authorizing the elections committee to run special elections to fill a vacancy. That takes a bylaw amendment, and there's a process to be followed for that. The bylaws authorize board appointment to fill the vacancy. Past boards maintained full membership through alternates when needed. The absence of appointment in one instance does not remove the authority the bylaws grant us. This current board is choosing the available bylaw remedy, and I propose that we do so. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was all germane to whether or not it should be removed from the agenda. Indigo.
I won't take long, simply to echo what Paxton said. I don't think this is a good motion at this point. It's not about people, it's about process. Thank you.
Thank you. John Davis.
I really appreciate what Sandra and Teresa said, and I like to listen to the discussion. And for that reason, I think we should have the motion on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you, Paxton. I'm going to go to people who haven't spoken yet. LT.
Thank you. I plan to say a little more than I had intended to, because apparently the statements that Sandra made were considered germane to the motion. So I want to make it clear that the precedent that is being discussed is not merely the absence of appointment in one instance, it's the absence of appointment in any instance. And that's not just back in the day when there were alternates, but it also includes the 2022 board, and Sandra was on that board, as was AJ. When there were two, not one, but two vacancies as of February of 2022, and those two vacancies remained vacant until the next election. And there wasn't a word said about it. And so the issue here, and I hope this addresses Teresa's concern, the issue is that this utterly unprecedented move is deeply divisive, that and that the benefit of having this discussion and the benefit of proceeding on this motion is vast, is extremely marginal in relation to the cost. And this discussion itself is costly. And frankly, this discussion has already cost us our membership secretary. And this is the price that folks are willing to pay, I would submit, is astonishingly high compared to the remarkably low marginal benefit that's being offered. And so again, I just think we're all better off if we just let it alone, the way we always do, the way that all of you, with the exception of the three of us who were newly elected in this past election, all the rest of you had no problem leaving it alone a year ago. And nobody has offered an explanation of why this year is different than last year. There are explanations, and I don't think that they tend to support this motion. I think just the opposite. And so again, what's the payoff? Why is it worth what you're doing? Let's just back off and move on to something that matters, and something that will benefit us, and not rip ourselves apart for the slightest gain.
Thank you, LT. And I do see you, Paxton. I have you down, but I'm still sticking with people who haven't spoken yet. AJ?
Yeah. So I would start off by saying, last meeting we had, it was argued that we should follow by same people that are against us talking about this motion, that we should, the bylaws say it, so we should do it when it comes to appointing members to committees. This is no different. the bylaws give us this authority. The bylaws did not say you have to do this all the time. The bylaws have said for a long time that this is authority that we can choose to use. Now, this year, somebody put forth a motion to appoint that use that bylaw. In previous years, they didn't. This candidate has never run for the board before. In previous years, candidates had run for the board and the membership had not reelected those candidates. So it would have been really interesting to bring forth a candidate who wasn't reelected after serving to fill a spot. Like Sandra said, there are, in the recent past, we've had alternates. And so those alternates would fill these spaces. And so we didn't have to come to decisions like we didn't have to use the bylaw for this. I disagree completely with the idea that we lost our membership secretary over this. I think that is political fight. That is a political statement that does not do this board service and does not do the work that we put in to this organization justice. I think we can have a robust conversation of our opinions without making it seem like somebody who's disagreeing is somehow hurting the organization. We're all doing our best here. And lastly, I will say that we owe this conversation. And I want to apologize to Felicia. I want to apologize that this discussion is happening with you present here. This should not be a hard thing. The bylaws say it, and we have somebody willing to step up and do the work of the organization who got several hundred votes. And if
Okay, well, let's
and,
stay off
and the last
let's stay off
statement I will finish.
okay.
If we had continued with alternatives or alternates in this case, it wouldn't be a question. Felicia would be filling this spot.
Okay. I haven't heard anyone, I've heard people describe the motion's effect on the organization. I don't think anyone's characterized others to this point. Kevin Levy.
Sorry about that. So it is weird that we're trying to take this off now. It's been new business. It's been around for months and we're doing this now. And so like it's weird I was here for the conversation and I think we all deserve to have the discussion over it. My perspective is a little bit different when you're right. When vacancies came up, people were like, "Oh, we just don't film." I was like, "Oh, okay." Because I expected we did, and we're like, "Okay, whatever." We moved on. You're right. So when somebody said, "Hey, we're thinking about putting Felicia in," or we're thinking like this is an opportunity for that, I was like, "Okay, why not? Why not? What is going to happen here? Is the world going to end? Is the fair going to close? Are we not going to be able to come out of our booths at night?" I mean, I'm just not sure I see the gain or non-gain or any of that as far as she is someone new. I'm sorry to keep speaking about you, Felicia, like that, but like, it's just someone new. For me, it was about like, I think about this board, I think about boards 5 years, 50 years from now and what that looks like and the makeup of it. And we are getting more and more people that have never ran for the board than what I can see as ever before. And I think that's a great thing. I feel like, what is the plan here? Are we going to be trying to include anyone crazy enough to jump in here and help us? I think so. Get on in here. If you want to do it, let's go. Come on in. Let's figure this out together. And I'm always open for a new voice and someone else. And again, so maybe mine's just a little bit too plain or innocent or whatever, but like I don't see what the problem is in welcoming new leadership and someone that wants to come and join in the discussion. Can we do this without, with 11 people? We could probably do it with 5 or something. I mean, of course we can do that. Do we have to do it? We don't. We don't have to do it. You're right. And so why not? And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. And so it's weird to me, a lot of the energy going around. And I definitely am not looking to, screw over the membership, so to speak. Sorry for my language, but like that was not how I looked at when I heard it. I was like, okay, sure. And I thought this would be an easy thing. I thought everybody would be like, yeah, let's do it. But here we are. So it's weird. But I don't know if I'm going off, Stephen. Sorry, but I think we should move. We should have the discussion. And so thanks, y'all.
Okay, thank you. John Steinhardt.
Okay, I want to start by reminding everybody that had George passed just a few weeks earlier, Felicia would be sitting on the board right now. I'm listening really hard, but I'm having great difficulty teasing out the actual issue here. There doesn't seem to be any groundswell of upset on the part of the membership, except for what appears to be a coordinated campaign similar to and likely from the same source as the one that in the recall a few years ago distracted the membership from the issue at hand. The only thing deeply divisive about this is that some are trying to tell others that it's divisive. What I think I'm hearing is that George's unfortunate passing has changed the balance of power on the board, and those that are opposing the motion prefer that. And instead of being honest and transparent, it seems
Let's try not to talk about others, please.
Instead of being honest and transparent, it seems to be a disingenuous effort to change the subject. This
Point of
doesn't
order.
make it.
Yeah.
Could you not interrupt me, please? This doesn't make sense to me, as we don't have any
Point
idea.
of order.
Is a point of order. Go ahead, LT. What is it?
These are personal attacks and mischaracterizations of other individuals' motives, including personal attacks regarding prior issues before the membership. It's entirely out of order.
Yes, thank you. So, John, I mean, if you can address the substance of the motion or your interpretation of the effects or the not effects of adding a person or not adding a person, but words like disingenuous and other things are inflammatory and applying motives to others. Can you refrain from that?
I'll do my best, but you allow this on other people all the time.
I've tried not to.
Okay, I'm going to continue here if that's okay. This doesn't make sense to me, as we don't have any idea how Felicia would vote on the issues before us. I've satisfied myself that they bring a wealth of good experience and energy, which is what matters to me and what I think should matter to the organization. Our organization is governed by our bylaws, abiding by them as a condition of membership. A top-to-bottom review of the bylaws was completed 3 years ago. Nobody had any objection to this policy then. While I don't like to use this language, isn't this whole effort disrespectful to the bylaws committee? And what about the vast majority of our membership? As I said during member input, the board has to make decisions that can't make everybody happy. This is one of them, and I don't see how it comports with my duty of care to allow a small group to dictate when the board is allowed to follow our policies. Thanks.
Thank you. The size of the group is undetermined. We'll find that out in a vote. Trevor Ross.
Yeah, I don't want to waste too much time on this. I'm just finding myself in alignment with Teresa's words, what seems like quite a while ago. And along with Kevin, he and I initially had conversations just positing the question, what do we do? And why not? And so I just believe that, we should do our job under the law, under the bylaws.
Thank you. I have Paxton, Sandra, Teresa Vaughn. Actually, I have John Govsky who hasn't spoken yet. So why don't you go, John? And then I've got Paxton, Sandra, Teresa Vaughn, and LT.
Okay. Well, it seems like the motion to remove this item is becoming a proxy for just the actual motion, and people want to discuss it and not cut off debate. So I'm just assuming we could get to the main motion, because at this point, talking about a motion to remove it doesn't make any sense. It's not going to pass, right? So I'm just trying to be practical here. And let's have the discussion everybody wants to have. So at this point, whatever it takes to get to the main motion, let's just do that. Thank you.
Well, I'll remind folks that one of the things you can do is call for the question, and you can't do that and speak first. So, Paxton.
We're a membership organization, and I think that's one of the important parts in this discussion, that the members have process to elect board members, and I think the elections that works, and I think that's the process we should be using. That's why I support this. I have further arguments I'll end up making in the actual regular discussion on appointing a person, which I would actually hope to avoid.
Thank you. Sandra,
I'll call the question.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Sandra and seconded by John Steinhardt. So we are voting on whether to stop talking about this and vote on it. This is about ending the conversation. Sandra, a yes vote means we stop talking about it and vote on the motion.
Then yes.
Paxton,
No.
AJ,
Yes.
John Davis,
Yes.
John Steinhardt,
Yes.
John Govsky,
Yes.
Trevor Ross,
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn,
Yes.
Lawrence Taylor,
Yes.
Kevin Levy,
Yes.
Indigo.
Yes.
Okay, so we are ending the conversation with Paxton voting against. We are voting on the agenda change to remove that item. Sandra,
I do not, what?
a no vote means you do not want to remove it from the agenda. A yes vote means to remove it from the agenda.
Okay, I'm a no.
Paxton,
Yes.
AJ,
No.
John Davis,
No.
John Steinhardt,
No.
John Govsky,
No.
Trevor Ross,
No.
Teresa Vaughn,
No.
Lawrence Taylor,
Yes.
Kevin Levy,
No.
and Indigo.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion fails with Sandra, AJ, John Davis, John Steinhardt, John Govsky, Trevor Ross, Teresa Vaughn, and Kevin Levy voting no. Is there any other agenda review motions? Last
Yes,
call?
Yes, if you're confused by the stack, I have one.
Okay, what is it?
I move to postpone the expenditures by board committee motion for 1 month to have it be first on the agenda at the next meeting. A lot of work has gone on this, and I think another month we'll get it dialed in.
I second.
Moved by John Steinhardt and seconded by Teresa Vaughn to postpone the board expenditure motion to next month's meeting. Is there any member input on this? Any member input on removing that from tonight's agenda and postponing it till next meeting? Seeing none, is there any board discussion?
Thank you. Yes. Sorry.
Last call. Is there any board discussion? You want to speak?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you for all of the input that has been happening on this, and all the work that people seem to be working together to get this into a really good motion. So I want to appreciate all of those who are making the effort to make this work. So thank you.
Thank you. Teresa.
Yeah, I was pretty much going to say the same thing. Just gotten some of the committees submitting some really important points. And I want to make sure that we honor and take our time to do this justice. So thank you to all of the committee members who've reached out.
Thank you. Last call. Is there any board discussion? Okay, no one has spoken against the motion. Is there any objection to this postponement? Any objection? Seeing none, the motion is postponed by unanimous consent to next month. Is there any other agenda review? Last call for agenda review. Seeing none, we'll go to member comments. Now's the time for member comments. This is on items which are not on old business. So if you have comments related to items that are on the agenda, on old business, then please save those for those motions. This is about member comments on anything not on old business. LT, I'll ask you to stick to so I've got board members raising their hand. We ask you stay to 3 minutes during the membership comments, the way members are required to do.
Of course. Shouldn't take
LT.
that long. I just want to pick up on the discussion that began during announcements regarding the term personal attacks, which I believe has a meaning and which I believe refers to attacks on a person, not on their specific behaviors or choices. It's what we folks who use Latin call ad hominem attacks. And so I believe that the term personal attacks has been metastasized and expanded into any criticism of anything anyone does, or at least anyone that we like or support does, and that I am confident that, as has always, with few exceptions, been the case throughout the history of this board, that we can do the business of the organization, including quite often disappointing various people by our decisions, without being either disrespectful or unkind. And so I do not see any conflict between respect and kindness and, dare I say it, love, and doing the business of the fair. And the use of the term personal attacks as a weapon to stifle conversation is something I think that has been used by a few far too much. And I'd like to see us stick to the actual meaning of those words.
Thank you. And I do my best to manage that as best I can. When we're speaking, look over what you're saying, and things that attribute to people or to motives could often be rephrased to talk about the actions and the consequences. And if it's not objectively about, some factual thing that someone factually did that everyone can accept, that is not an attack, then try and reframe things in ways that are non-inflammatory. That's the objective. Indigo.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm currently sitting here in Cairo, Egypt, and I'm feeling the truth of what's happening in our world. I'm not going to talk politically, but I do want to just say that the Oregon Country Fair can be a beacon of light in a very dark world. And this word attack is happening quite literally and quite violently in our world right now, very close to me. And I'm tuning in here early morning so that I can be with us, because this is so important what we're doing. And I hope that the discussions that precede this member input part does come with heart and with the understanding that we are blessed, deeply blessed to be able to sit here. We are privileged to be able to be a part of an organization like the Oregon Country Fair when there are people dying right now. There are people scared for their lives. There are mothers who have lost their children, fathers who have lost their children. And what we're doing is really important. And what's happening is really scary. So I hope that as we're speaking into the various motions that are in front of us today and into our future, that we remember how privileged we are to be able to be a part of something like the Oregon Country Fair in a world that is quite frankly falling apart, and with governments around the world who are overreaching their authority in so many ways. Thank you for letting me speak that, and please send me blessings. I fly home on the 5th through the air of all of this craziness. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi?
Hi, I'm Heidi Doscher, and I am on the election committee, and I am on the endowment committee, and I was formerly the membership secretary. And so I would just like to tell the board how disappointed I am that we have lost a third membership secretary. We've only had 3 membership secretaries in the history of having members. We had to start keeping a membership list sometime in the mid-80s. I think it was, or late 80s, because the state of Oregon said we can't just let whoever we want vote, we have to have a membership list. And it was sometime later that a membership secretary was actually appointed. And the first membership secretary, me, lasted for over 30 years. The next membership secretary lasted 2 years before, I think it was for ethical reasons, he decided that he could not continue in the position. And now and he was a great membership secretary. And we had a gem of a secretary who just also quit. And so I would like the board to really do some self-examination and try to figure out why we can't keep a membership secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. Lainey.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you for sharing that, Heidi. I think that's an important thing to do. I just wanted to point out, Stephen, that the thing you were asking John not to do in his sharing is exactly what LT was doing. That's polarizing assumptions. I just wanted to share that with you because I heard the same kind of disparaging other that you were calling John out on or interrupting him when he was talking. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you, Lainey. I will review the recording afterwards, but I'm sorry about this echo. Can you mute, Lainey?
Yep.
So I will listen to the recording afterwards, but I was listening closely and I think the language is distinctly different. We're talking about trying not to inflame passions, and it gets hard once people start jabbing at each other. Jaya.
I am also calling from out of the country, and my Wi-Fi blipped out when it was the discussion that affected the committee that I'm on, the Jill Hyman Vision Fund Committee. I have 2 pages of notes I was going to read. I'm not going to read them. What my concern is about the process. I'm glad that this motion got tabled. I'm concerned about the anxiousness that much of us went through. Jill Hyman Vision Fund Committee, I've been on it for about 15 years. It is a high-functioning, wonderful committee where we work in a manner of respect. We are transparent about our process. And one of the quotes when this was introduced last month, I read this from the Fair Family News, was about how they get to spend money, never come to the board and answer questions, such as whether there are any conflicts of interest. My biggest concern about this was no one came to us to ask, what is your process? Do you have any conflicts of interest? How do you deal with conflicts of interest? We have a count at the end of the season. This is something Hillary has approved, the way we do it. Everything is detailed, documented with all of our funding. The only money we spend is out of it's not out of the donations, it's out of operations. Most of it actually is out of our own pockets because it's only for things like tape that we put on the boxes. If we need to have some new boxes, okay, that's some money that we get out of that. Donations are money in, money out. There's going to be a letter in the Fair Family News detailing a lot of this from the committee, probably written by Susie because she's Susie Brzezinski. She's our best writer on the committee. But again, my concern is the process. We've been sending emails, we've been communicating. Thank you for those who reached out to us. But why didn't you communicate to your board chosen committee or through the liaison to these committees before you did a proposal? It would have saved a lot of time and energy. One other piece that I'm going to add is within this is that to make these selections, there's years we've gotten 30 applications. Do you really want the board to have the opportunity to go through those 30 applications and choose 5 of them? What would your criteria be? We've developed criteria. We've worked on these things for over years. So when you have a committee, talk to those committees, invite those conversations before coming up with proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. And last call, is there any other member input? Last call for member input. John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I assume I have a few seconds left here. I kind of feel like this is being a little blown out of proportion. The board has a fiduciary duty, and we have a little bit of a hole in how we do things, and we're trying to patch it up. And there's been a lot of dialogue with Susie, and I thought that we had reached a pretty good state, and then she sent a letter that ignored the previous letter, and so I'm a little confused by it, but I really don't think this is that big a problem. I think this is the board trying to manage its fiduciary duty and oversight. Nobody ever said anything about wanting to review each particular donation. So yeah, let's not blow this stuff out of proportion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Last call for member input. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to staff report. Kirsten.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening, everybody. I have some unfortunate news to share. Sunny was terminated from her OCF employment last week. Good news, though, Mark Malaska has decided to return to OCF. He will be back on staff March 16th. He will be the senior event manager, and Kim, our new event manager, will be just an event manager. They will both report to me, but they will work together to support the organization and our volunteers and our event. So we're grateful to have Mark back, and we look forward to his return. Under the administration, the 2026 capital improvement project requests are before the board tonight. And after tonight, we will let the individuals or crews that applied for them know whether they were funded or not. The 2026 coordinator budget sheets have been sent to all coordinators. We are currently working on the 2025 tax filings. That's the financial statements 990 and CT 12. We have filed for an extension of time, and it has been granted for the 990 and CT 12. That means we have until November 15th, 2026 to complete our tax filings. The Sunshine Database opened up yesterday, March 1st, and will close on Friday, July 3rd, 2026 at midnight. Printing of wristbands lists will be on Saturday, July 4th. We are currently updating coordinator credentials for 2026, and coordinators should review their crew leader credentials right now. Emailing from the database is a new feature this year, and so look for an FAQ that will be coming soon so that you can email your crews through the database. The volunteer team has opened the volunteer application for 2026. If you know someone who wants to volunteer, send them to the .org site to sign up. If you need volunteers on your crew, please contact volunteering@OregonCountryFair.org. On the event management side, the 2026 coordinator kickoff meeting is scheduled for Saturday, April 18th at 2 p.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church. It will be in person and on Zoom. The 2026 Spring Fling is scheduled for Saturday, May 2nd at 6 p.m. Wow Hall, and the Sugar Beats will be playing. The 2026 Culture Jam is confirmed and scheduled for Tuesday, July 28th through Tuesday, August 4th. The 2026 Teddy Bear Picnic is scheduled for Sunday, August 16th. And the 2026 annual membership meeting is scheduled for Saturday, October 10th at 6:30 p.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church. It will be in person and on Zoom. Marketing tickets opened for sale on February 6th. I have no comparison data yet, as we haven't opened ticket sales this early before. The first comparison date I will have will be starting April 1st, but tickets are off to a really good start. And prices do change to full price, which is $60 on June 16th, 2026. The 2026 guidelines are almost done. We expect the digital version to be on the .net site any day now, this week for sure. Then they will go off to the printer and will be available for pickup during main camp and at the sticker booth. The map will be separate again this year and available at QM during main camp and the sticker booth during Crunch Week. This is the operational map. Craft applications are closed. Entertainment applications are closed. Food booth applications are closed. Team crew applications are open. Coordinators can now start requesting teens for their crews. Teens will be able to start requesting to be on crews on April 1st through May 15th. The 2026 contracts, I'm still struggling with the LTD. It does look like we have a potential bidder. I don't want to go into too much detail because I'm still working some magic on the back end and may be able to get them to withdraw their bid. I will know on March 9th if they will withdraw their bid. It's been quite a heroic effort to get this, get them to understand that they cannot provide the service that we need. If they do bid and do not withdraw, then LTD is out, and I have a backup plan on that, but I don't want to go into it because, again, I need to keep my cards pretty close to my chest while I play this chess game with this bidder. Okay. Verizon is confirmed to Cow. T-Mobile has confirmed to Cow. That's a cell tower. AT&T, as you know, no longer provides a cell tower to us. Life's Best Intense is done. All of our equipment has been ordered. Credit card terminals have been ordered. ATMs have been ordered. Late night trip bus has been ordered. We will be initiating CenturyLink landlines again this year. Last year we turned them off, and that actually had a catastrophic failure on Saturday night, so we will not do that again. And United Site Services equipment will all be on site by June 15th and deployed and ready by Crunch Week. 2026 permits, we submitted and received a renewal for our SUP. We do that every year until we finalize it. The Lane County camping permits will be submitted this week for our campgrounds. We'll be submitting the outdoor assembly, the right-of-way, dance pavilion, and Chela Mela in the coming weeks. And ODOT permit has already been started. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And Treasurer's Report, Hillary?
Yeah, I'll keep it short because I'll talk again under old business when we talk about the capital projects. For this report, I'll just thank the committee and the staff and the visitors to the budget committee. It was really quick, amazing work. Thanks to also to everybody who put a proposal in. We had some really interesting proposals, a lot of good infrastructure type stuff. And want to let you guys know I will be out of the country and not calling in next month, but I'll be back again in May. So talk to you soon.
Thank you. And moving on to committee and work group reports, is there any objection to accepting the committee and work group reports as submitted? Last call. Any objection to accepting the committee and work group reports as submitted? Seeing none, the reports are accepted by unanimous consent, and we'll move on to old business. The first old business item is to approve the 2026 capital improvement projects, sponsored by AJ, Sandra, and John Steinhardt. Who would like to make the motion?
I will.
I'll
And
second.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Sandra and seconded by John Steinhardt. Do you want to speak to the motion briefly, Sandra, before we go to input?
Yeah, the motion is to approve the 2026 capital improvement projects. As Hillary said, it was quite the detailed process with a lot of investigation, and we've come up with some really great projects, and you've had a chance to review it, and I certainly hope that you all approve that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will begin with member input. Is there any member input on the capital improvement projects motion?
Can I present, Steve?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Okay, I just want to do an intro. In the board packet, they got a letter from me as treasurer representing the budget committee and just talking a little bit in detail, and a cash flow statement and the list of the capital projects. I'm not going to go over the capital projects in detail, and I suggest if board members want to pull one out that they do that, but I'll talk a little bit about the organization and the process. We have 3 different types of capital projects, and one is the normal course of business operating capital projects that we do every year. The other is long-term capital projects, and that's a lot of the types of projects that we used to do with reserve funds that can take multiple years. And when we set up this category, we said these are projects that are complicated, big, might take more than 1 year. And once you approve the entire amount, we have 5 years to keep it on the books without it coming back again. Typically, these projects might require a permit or some level of complication, multiple crews, and they must have a staff leading them. And then the green ticket projects are things that support the original purpose of the green ticket fund, which a dollar from every ticket goes into the green ticket fund. It's a board designated fund. And the initial purposes were sustainability, philanthropy, and education. So we really focused on the sustainability purpose there is a broader purpose for it. Sorry, I've got a cough. The committee went through and ranked these projects, and we noticed a few things. There was a lot of infrastructure projects, a lot of really big projects that either got changed or put aside. Some of them staff let us know about because they were kind of giving us a heads up. We had a lot of proposals about power, and I want to draw people's attention to this. We had one proposal to extend the grid power into the 8, and we are recommending that, partly because we have a grid intertie and can tie back in, and partly because our energy provider is using a carbon-free source of power. So actually, by plugging into the grid, we are generating less carbon than we are by having a generator run a stage. So, just remember that. And we had several solar projects that we are hoping to see a more coordinated approach to power in the future, that we're very siloed, and we have some projects that have some cost associated with them that we think are not taking advantage of a design that is fully planned out and coordinated with an overall plan. So we are really hoping, like, maybe we'll try to kick Peach Power, maybe we'll try to write up the criteria of what we're hoping for. But that was kind of a big issue for us. Some of the very expensive projects that we thought needed some more coordination. And then as far as the cash flow goes, the board gets something like this every time when we do things. I put in budget numbers, I put in actual starting cash, and then I put in our budget numbers for income and expense. I want you to remember that budgets are not projections. Budgets, the expenses in budgets are the maximum amount that the board has approved to be spent. It doesn't mean that's what we're going to spend. In some cases, staff might approve to spend more. We know we tend to underspend in certain categories like coordinator expense, and there's a lot of times that some of the capital projects don't get fully funded. So those are not, the expenses in the budget are not a projection. The income is closer to a projection and an estimate based on a set of researched assumptions and a somewhat conservative approach. So, just remember, when we're putting these numbers in, this is not saying that we think this is where we're going to land, but we think this is a really good conservative estimate of where we could land. And the gist of what this cash flow is saying is that if we are considering all the reserve funds that we have and taking $1.5 million as being our reserve, that's our rainy day fund, that's backup for big projects that might come along in kind of a pinch. It's a wider concept than the rainy day fund, but we're not really using that term rainy day fund so much. That's where we would like to build that up over time. And it's not, we can figure out the level of urgency, but that is where next time, if we end up not having an event, we're not expecting a whole bunch of federal money coming at us, and it's this reserve that's going to get us through. So we're hoping to build it up, but right now it's 1.5 million. Everything that we're recommending can be approved, and with this projection, we are expecting that we can keep that reserve fund intact. If we have better than we expect results, we can have that reserve amount go up by the end of the year. And then we have an operating reserve that right now is about 1.1 million. And of that, a portion will be spent until this year's money starts coming in. And the way we have these projects right now, that if we spent everything on all these projects that we're recommending to you, with $100,000 of these big 5-year projects that we're recommending, we're not saying let's spend all large amounts for these 5-year projects, but $100,000 of this of the water and internet project, we would end the year with about $1 million in operating money. So that operating money is, again, what would get us through to the 2027 fair. And that's a good amount for operating money. So I just want to tell you, we've looked at the numbers. We feel comfortable with the amount that we're recommending to you, that we can afford it. So, and we're pretty comfortable with all the projects too. We went line by line by the projects. We had a lot of time to research them and call people up if we had questions. Some of them we adjusted the amount. Some of them we changed a little bit. We had a lot of carry forwards. We have a lot of infrastructure projects in there. So with that, I'm going to hand it over. And if people have questions about individual projects, bring them up, and staff or somebody on the committee can help with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, do you want to say something, Kirsten, before we go to member input?
Yes, thank you. I just want to also emphasize that some of these projects won't get funded until after the event. It's kind of like we want to judge our income, our revenue for the year. So not all of these will be greenlit on the front end, and we always, adjust according to our revenue. So, if things are going good, most of these will get done. If we sense some, sluggishness, we will hold back. So I just want you to know, by greenlighting doesn't mean, by the board approving these, doesn't mean that they're all actually going to be funded. It's really based on our ability to fund based on current year revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to member input. Is there any member input? Please raise your hand in chat. We've already called out for this, so I'm not going to wait too long. No one's raised their hand. Last call for member input. Is there any member input on capital improvements? Please raise your hand in chat. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on the capital improvements motion? John Steinhardt?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I sat in on all the budget committee meetings for doing this, and I'm really impressed by the way they work. It's a very well-functioning committee, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other board discussion? Paxton?
I'm really impressed at getting all the budget minutes in the attached documents. That really helped me understand the process of what was going through. I really want to thank the budget committee for all the work done on this. This is a big, big project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board discussion? Last call for board discussion. Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. This is a vote to approve the capital improvement projects. Sandra?
Yes.
Paxton?
Yes.
AJ?
Yes.
John Davis?
Yes.
John Steinhardt?
Yes.
John Govsky?
Yes.
Trevor Ross?
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn?
Yes.
Lawrence Taylor?
Yes.
Kevin Levy?
Yes.
Indigo?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to the next item, the last item on old business, to appoint Felicia Kirsch to the OCF. We're moving on to appoint Felicia Kirsch to the OCF board seat vacated by George Braddock, sponsored by Sandra, AJ, Kevin Levy, John Steinhardt, Teresa Vaughn, John Davis, Trevor Ross, and John Govsky. Who would like to make the motion?
I will.
Moved by Sandra. Who would like to second?
I
I'll
will.
second.
Okay, I heard Teresa first. So it's moved by Sandra and seconded by Teresa. Does anybody want to speak to this motion briefly before we go to member input? No,
I think we know what.
if you're speaking, Sandra, you're muted.
Sorry, I muted myself instead of unmuting. Yes, I highly recommend that we appoint Felicia Kirsch to the empty spot on the board, the vacated spot. She has a lot of business experience. She has a lot of support from the membership. She's organized. She's impartial, and I think she brings a lot to the board that we could use. So thank you for considering this. Thank you.
Thank you. Member input. Is there any member input on this motion? Please raise your hand in chat. Let me catch up. Okay, Heidi.
Hi, this is Heidi Doscher, and yes, the bylaws say that you can appoint someone to an empty position, and it's certainly a right that the board has. But I would urge the board to consider that there is no urgency to fill this position. It seems unnecessary, given that there are still 11 board members. And bottom line, to me, it just looks disrespectful. It looks disrespectful of George and his position on the board. It looks
Point
disrespectful.
of order.
Yeah.
We talked about assigning those things, and to call a vote disrespectful falls into that category.
Okay, I'm not sure where you see if she's saying that she thinks it looks disrespectful. She's not accusing anyone of being disrespectful. That's the distinction that I see.
That's interesting. I disagree with that line. I think you're blurring the line between, saying that it's the same thing.
It's
I
not.
don't know
So
how.
the idea here, let me just clarify. The idea here is to not be inflammatory and not point directly at people, not to necessarily never say that anything goes wrong. A good example would be saying that a small group of people is trying to distract everyone, is specifically accusing a group of people of trying to do something nefarious. To say, I believe that a group of people are trying to distract everyone is at least not stating it as a fact, and it's acceptable, but it's not as good. It's still inflammatory, and it's much better to say, I believe it is a distraction. In this case, if she believes that the motion is disrespectful to George or to something else, but she's not saying, you all are being, that an individual is being disrespectful, that is typically allowed, and it goes on here all the time. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
doing
that
my
falls.
best, but that's a distinction I run.
Does that not fall under inflammatory though?
What?
Calling those who may have a different opinion or a different way forward than what she's saying, calling on them to be disrespectful to a colleague that has passed away.
If she believes that the motion is disrespectful to the colleague, if she's not, I'd have to review exactly what she said, but what I heard was her saying that she believes the motion is disrespectful to the colleague who passed away. That is a legitimate position. That is not the same as saying, I think you all, by even bringing this up, are being disrespectful. And that is a level of disagreement that occurs here all the time. So I'm doing my best to manage it, but that's the way I'm viewing these things.
I'll allow us to move forward, but I disagree with that. But I think we should keep our opinions about our opinions and not about inflaming the conversation that's already inflamed.
Well, I appreciate that. I think this is going to be potentially, it sounds like a difficult conversation. Stating specific positions about the motion itself is generally allowed. Heidi, I'd have to hear what you said exactly again, but I think you're okay if you want to continue.
I did say that it seems to me, and I will add that it is my opinion that it seems disrespectful to George. It seems disrespectful to other people, other board members who have resigned and their positions have not been refilled. And it even kind of seems a little disrespectful to Felicia because she'll only have 8 months on the board, which it takes a while to get used to being on this board, and then she'll have to go up for re-election again. So I'm sorry, I just don't see it as necessary.
Thank you. Ryan?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, but I can't do video. But so I've known Felicia and her family for 18 years. She's been an integral part of my fair journey since her and her husband helped me receive my first fair pass 15 years ago, working security for Zumwalt. Today, as I lead and help run the Farside crew that builds and operates the Farside campground, Felicia stands out as one of our strongest contributors. She consistently improves our efficiency. She strengthens our team morale. And kind of hearing some of this conversation is very interesting. but she helps us execute at a very high level under very demanding conditions. Her experience running restaurants translates directly to the fair. She knows how to manage complex operations, steward resources responsibly. She has a very diverse personality, which we all love. And she really, I think, helps keep fair communities at the value of every decision that she does. I strongly support her appointment, and I believe filling this position with someone who already understands the culture, the workload, and has the responsibility will ensure continuity, stability, and momentum. So I strongly consider or hope you consider her. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Carolyn Giselle.
Yeah, thank you. I'll echo everything that Ryan said, but on top of that, consider this. If you bring Felicia onto the board, she will only be on until October. Now, she's going to have to run again. So isn't this a great time to see what Felicia can do? And then in October, the membership can decide if she stays or she goes. So I think this is pretty, pretty clean cut. I think it's simple. I don't feel like we're disrespecting anybody. And I would like to see Felicia get an opportunity to show us what she can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sue Theolis.
Wow. No disrespect to anybody, especially Felicia. However, this feels icky to me. As far as I remember, the last two board members who resigned at a time when we had no alternates. It wasn't even brought up for discussion whether or not someone else should be appointed. And that's why this feels a little off to me. It doesn't seem to be in the best interest of process or the fair. There are a lot of other things. I'm sorry. It leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. And Felicia, this has nothing at all to do with you. I want you to know that. It's just, I served on the board for a long time, and this doesn't feel right to me.
Thank you. John Pincus.
Point of order, if I may, Stephen.
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt Sue, but that did not really seem like it was speaking to the motion. That seemed like it was going back to the agenda review topic. It wasn't, I approve, I'd like to vote for her or against her. It was an argument against voting again. And
it was an argument against the motion. She says the motion doesn't feel right to her. So you can cut it another way. But I mean, it was a brief statement by member input speaking to this motion that said the motion doesn't feel right to her, meaning I'm sure that she was opposed to it. John Pincus.
Hi, thanks. I want to thank Felicia for stepping forward, and I want her to know that my comments have nothing to do with the value of her potential candidacy. But I wrote the board a note earlier today, and I'm sorry for being so late. I hope you got a chance to peruse it. So I won't repeat the points in it. The bottom line is, if this organization is to continue as a democratically governed organization, the power to place somebody on the board, except for in a real emergency circumstance, which is what those kind of bylaw sections are for, that power should remain with the membership. I think that this potential appointment at this time denies the membership their right to choose from the get-go who serves on the board. That's basically my point. I think it's about whether or not we're continuing as a democratically operated organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine.
Hi, thank you. I'm reading this statement on behalf of Arna Shaw, former board member and general manager. I'm sorry I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting, but I did want to speak about the appointment of another board member. I am opposed to this. Our bylaws state that the board may appoint new members when the board drops below 12 members, but only needs to do so when there are fewer than 9 members. Having 11 members is acceptable, and we decided to, according to our bylaws. When Tom Horn resigned, I was on the board and we decided to keep the board at 11 members. We discussed appointing the next highest vote getter, but decided against it for 2 reasons. That person hadn't been elected and we thought appointing her would go against the membership wishes. The other reason was political. I feel that many board members disliked that person's views and did not want her on the board. Many of those members are still on the board and are advocating for this appointment. So what has changed? This still goes against the wishes of the membership who didn't elect her. We functioned well as an 11 board member, and I strongly believe this board can also function well for the next 8 months with 11 members. I haven't heard a good argument for this other than the board can do this, so they will. That is not a good reason. No disrespect for the candidate, she can run again in the next election. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Ramus.
Yeah, hello, everybody. You know, I had a lot of things to speak to about this. Only got 3 minutes, so I'll cut some of it out, but I think a lot of it will be covered. The membership should always choose who sits in their board. It's a fairness and an access issue. For a motion to choose just one person out of the entire fair, one person to get this opportunity, it's just simply not fair. Everybody should have access to this vacant position, and that's what elections are for. Everybody can put in a candidate statement, and everybody can have access to the election and to the voter. To just pick one person to do that it's not right. And then there's incumbency. You know, I hear some of these board members that just went through an election. I ran that election. I couldn't imagine if we had given somebody some type of incumbency, they'd be in a very, very different view than they are now. So we're gonna bring the important benefit of incumbency and give it to just one person in the fair. And that person is going to have an advantage in the next election. So it becomes a problem, you know. So this is the membership's board. It's not the board's board. You know, the membership makes these decisions. And I think that precedent is incredibly important to think about here. And it's so easy to simply say, well, you know, that's in the past. The membership held on to this right, I think, very, very tightly, and for good reason. It's their fair, it's their board. And not only that, they put in elections in place to make sure that the membership has right to staff their board. And so more importantly in that, boards over the last 30 years or so did not do this because they respected the membership and the membership's right to choose their own board. So now we have a board that I think, in my opinion, is very much disrespecting the membership here.
Okay, let's try not to point at the board directly, please.
All right, I think this motion disrespects the membership in choosing their board, and it's just a poison pill, and there's no reason for it. And it just reeks of a power grab. Thank you.
All right. Coyote.
Okay, Jesus. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Everything's working? All right.
Yeah.
I got a brand new laptop. Coyote Connolly, I'm an elder. I'm here this evening to recommend that you reject this motion. There's no pressing need to fill this empty seat. Our organization has worked quite well when we had 9 board members. We worked well when Cynthia Peachy resigned, when Colleen Ballman resigned, when Tom Horn resigned. We survived, we adapted, we had our annual fair, and we moved forward to our next general election. From my understanding, orientation of and for new members of the at the fall board retreat is a crucial time for not only relationship building, it's also a vital time for learning and understanding the legal responsibilities of a board member of a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Felicia will not have had the benefit of this. In the current issue of the Fair Family News, I wrote this before I found out Jeffrey resigned, so I'm just going to keep winging it here. In the current issue of the Fair Family News, Jeffrey Rames, our well-respected and highly praised membership secretary responsible for board elections, has clearly, eloquently, and professionally laid out the rationale for rejecting this motion. I admire his willingness to exercise his right to free speech without the fear of retribution, retaliation, or censure. To paraphrase John Pincus and Jeffrey, if our Fair Family's access to our board will not be controlled by the board. It will be controlled by the membership. Please use common sense, fair play, good conscience, and reject this ill-conceived motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen Lynn and Paxton, we're in member input, so, go ahead, Jen Lynn.
Thank you. So I'm speaking as a former recording secretary back in the 90s and early 2000s. I'm speaking as an elections committee member since the mid 90s. I went back looking at our history. In the past 11 or 12 years, we've had 6 people resign midterm. Bear Wilner, Laurel Blazer, Cynthia Peachy, Indigo Ronlove, Colleen Bauman, and Tom Horn. Not once did the board even raise the question whether the seat should be filled. And in my mind, that showed that they were respecting the membership's right to choose who should sit in that position. And I'm speaking here now as a member of the elections committee. I hold that membership's trust that I do not voice an opinion on any specific candidate, whether they should sit on that board or not, so that you can trust that we are conducting a fair election. So I'm not discussing any of the merits for Felicia, and I wish you all the well and hope that you choose to run again next year. However, it is my belief that this seat, that she did not earn that seat in the last election, and that seat should be earned. When I was listening to the earlier comments of whether this motion should even be discussed, we talked about alternates. At the time, we had a 10-member board and 2 alternates. We now have a 12-member board. I agree that the board with 11 members should be able to get the work done. It does not, having 1 less board member is not going to prohibit you from doing that. I also heard someone say that this would cause a change in the balance of power. I do not understand that logic. I don't see how that is possible. At this point, I urge you to all vote no against this. This is not fair to the membership, and it's not fair to our process, and it should not set a precedent moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. John Alexander.
Yeah, thank you very much. Calling from the Baltimore Washington International Airport. Please see my detailed input on this motion that I provided. It's in last month's minutes when this was new business, so I'll be brief. Please oppose this motion. There's a lack of precedent for this use of the bylaws. You should first develop a supporting policy and procedure to apply this bylaw. The bylaws committee has already called for a formal review of this specific section. I heard that mentioned while I was listening on the plane for YouTube about the bylaws being in support of this. The bylaws came to the board and said this section is flawed. To honor OCS representative democracy and the will of our membership, please reject this motion until a transparent policy about applying this bylaw section is established and the bylaws committee completes its review of this issue. And I want to speak to the candidate. I also ran in the board election, and she's an excellent candidate, and this is not about her, it's about process. She beat me, I think, by several votes. I would ask the board if the votes were different, would this motion be on the table? And I would suggest that it probably would not be. And this is not about who or what, it's about how and why. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jaya.
You know, I wasn't going to speak. This is only my second time ever speaking in board meetings in 30 some years of being at the fair. But once again, I'm speaking about the process. This is my concern. I've just heard more members speak about this who are concerned about the process of how this came up. Again, I don't know Felicia at all. I did hear a couple of people speak to her qualities, but it's not about her as a person. It's about what the process is. And hearing John just say that this—
Hold on just a sec. So, Jaya, realizing you're unfamiliar with the process here, you get 3 minutes for the meeting. I'm going to give you,
for the meeting.
15 more seconds, but you had like 20 seconds and you weren't really nailing on it. Do you want
Okay. Like
15
I said,
seconds to
new
just—
to this all. Thank you. Please listen to the membership and process. I appreciated what John and Coyote, I really heard what they had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather.
So I'm pretty sure that Felicia would be an asset to the board. I voted for her in the election. This is not about that. As so many of us have said, this is not about that. So don't think that that's the case. This is actually politics. For anybody who's new to these meetings, this is actually politics. And that's the thing we're not supposed to bring up in the country fair. You're not supposed to do politicking, supposedly, or bring up politics. We're supposed to go along with the illusion that we are somehow above politics. Except here's the thing. We have elections, right? Elections include politics. And to John Alexander's point a moment ago, if the vote count had been switched and he was the one, the people who want to appoint Felicia would not be wanting to appoint John Alexander.
That's your opinion.
Simple. Yes, of course, that's my opinion.
Yes,
that's my opinion. The other thing that I have to ask the board is, please, how long are we going to indulge this parsing of language? We're spending a whole bunch of our meeting time now talking about talking. My main issue in terms of this appointment is that it appears that we have lost a membership secretary over this. And after his letter in last month's Fair Family News, he's now gone. I can only imagine that there was a whole bunch of conversation back and forth that none of us are privy to. But it is so huge that we lost that guy. So for anybody who's confused about what might be going on here, just really focus on that and wonder why. Thanks.
Thank you. Last call for member input. I have no one left in stack. Last call. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to board discussion. Sure, a bunch of hands are going to come up, so give me a hand to get a couple in there. Okay, Teresa.
Hey, I wrote my thoughts down, so I got to get to that. I'm on a little phone here. So I am in support of this motion, and I'm going to try to be as direct because I think clarity matters right now. There has been a lot of intensity around this issue, and I am doing my very best to stay grounded in our bylaws, our judgment, and our fiduciary duty, and to try to not match that intensity. To me, this motion is not about personalities or factions. It's about whether or not we will use a tool that our bylaws explicitly allow us to use. I sit on many other boards. This is a very common practice. And I have been stunned at the reaction. Our bylaws provide a clear pathway for filling a vacancy by board appointment. That is standard nonprofit governance. So the question is not whether this is something we've always done. The question is whether it's allowed and whether it serves the organization now. And I still, even after hearing everything, believe that it does. We should be asking ourselves a straightforward question. Would this person bring a perspective that is helpful to the board? In this case, we have a candidate who's already stepped forward publicly, and frankly, if after this meeting still wants to be a part of this group, that they get a few more points, as far as I'm concerned. They've demonstrated a commitment to this organization and whose voice would add to the work that's in front of us. I also want to address the argument that this doesn't matter because there's only a few meetings left before the membership fills the seat. If it truly doesn't matter, then there's no harm in appointing someone to serve during that time, especially when doing so strengthens our capacity and gives the membership the opportunity to see that person in the role before making their own decision. In that sense, to me, it actually enhances member choice. Leaving the seat vacant can limit us for the few meetings we have left. It reduces perspective, capacity, and asks the current board to do more with less. I also want to address this idea of precedent. It continues to be said that this is not how things have been done. That's not entirely accurate. For many years, the board used alternates to fill vacancies. Those were people that didn't win the seat, meaning seats were not always left empty, and the board has exercised mechanisms to maintain continuity. And more recently, the board did appoint a vice president who had not been elected by the membership. That decision did not generate this level of concern or opposition. So I think it's fair to say that the application of the argument of precedent has not been consistent. If there is a concern that the bylaws themselves are not aligned with our values, then there is a clear and appropriate path. We can refer this to the bylaws committee, and it sounds like they're already going to take it on, and I applaud them for it. I have deep respect for that group of people, and was the liaison in the past, so have some experience with them. That is how governance is meant to work. By choosing not to follow the bylaws when they are clear puts us on much shakier ground. A really important thing that's coming up for me is that we cannot allow the volume or tone of opposition to determine our decisions. When disagreement becomes pressure, it becomes even more important that we return to principle. And the principle here to me is simple. We follow the bylaws, we evaluate the merits, and act in what we believe is in the best interest of the organization. And I also want to name something about who we are. This organization was built on creativity, on experimentation, on being willing to try something new rather than defaulting to this is how it's always been done. That spirit is part of our foundation. Respecting our history allows us to be different than what we've always done. Using a tool that our bylaws explicitly provides is not a break from our values, it's an expression of them. Finally, I keep hearing about power grabs or an agenda. And appointing one person to fill a vacancy does not create a power base unless there is a power base requires some sort of a coordinated agenda, and no such agenda has been identified. What is it that people are afraid of? I'm not clear about that. What we are doing is filling an empty seat with a qualified individual so the board can function as intended. This is a moment to lead with principle, not precedent, and I support the appointment. And I would like to also apologize, Felicia, for the awkwardness of all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Indigo.
So before I begin, I just want to apologize if I repeat anything that's said. I've been popping in and out of signal and have dropped off a couple of times while people were talking. The first thing I want to say is officer positions are board elect positions. They are not membership elect positions. So using that as a precedence for this particular discussion feels like apples and oranges to me. I would love for Felicia to run in November. I hear and have read and see what she has to offer. I think that she would bring a lot to the board. My objection has to do with the process. And as I understand that the bylaw committee is reviewing this very provision, I look forward to see what they come up with. The board can function with 11 people. The bylaws state we only need 3 board members to have a running board. The membership didn't elect the proposed individual, and the board is now choosing without the membership. And this feels to me to be a little bit of an overreach. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. I have heard our membership secretaries of the past. Now we need to look to elect a new membership secretary because of this issue. I have listened to the membership. I have listened to all the discussion that your board is having about this behind closed doors. Sorry, hold on. I want to also say that there is much discussed that never reaches the light of the membership through the OCF BOD Gmail. We never had this when I was on the board for 10 years, and while I see it as a helpful thing, it creates a lot of background dialogue that you, the membership, never get to see. There's a lack of transparency. You don't see some of the ways that the board speaks with and to each other. I think this is a problem. If you would hear all that's been said and all the emails that's been shared, you would maybe have different opinions. Maybe you wouldn't. However, this is how this current board is choosing to operate. I wonder, I heard John was on and I didn't hear exactly what he said, but I do wonder if someone were to vacate a seat for whatever reason, John being the next vote getter, would you then step forward to bring him and bring the same vote forward? That's a good question for everybody to consider. I think that someone voted onto the board by the board is at a disadvantage. They haven't attended the board retreats. They haven't entered into the culture of this particular board at this particular time. And they are going to have a very steep learning curve. And let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say. Oh, I heard something about her bringing something new and fresh, and that she hasn't sat on the board before. And it makes me wonder, is if someone has sat on the board, does that make them less valuable potential candidate for this open seat? I wonder if this open seat was put out in a special election, what would the membership decide? Who would step up to run and offer themselves into the board, and what would the membership vote? Maybe Felicia would get the seat and that would be amazing. Maybe somebody else would be running for an open seat and we don't know because we're not
Point
giving
of
the
order, this
membership.
is getting fairly far from the motion on the table.
How is it getting far from the motion?
I don't think it's far
I'm
from
not
the
going to
motion.
debate
She's
that
talking
with you.
specifically about the process of this process. I'm listening very
And
closely.
and that there too is another thing. There's a lot of shutdown of conversation and a lot of then blaming those who are being shut down that we are in fact shutting other conversations down. So I'm going to leave it at that. This is a highly dysfunctional board. I'm going to say that
Okay,
in my own personal opinion, and that's it.
Okay. AJ.
I have obviously a lot of opinions, and I usually will argue point for point, but I'm not going to do that tonight. What I am going to say is someone once told me, and I've shared that with the membership, that people willing to step up and volunteer in the time of need in this organization has always been something that's celebrated. And it concerns me that there seems to be such an intensity to not do this, and I'm bewildered by that. When I first came onto the board, um, the membership had voted, and I was voted in as vice president that first year. And the board at that time decided to, after the election, decided to appoint another vice president because the rationale in that decision was that I was too inexperienced. And so that they needed to appoint a person that just was not reelected as co-vice president because I was so inexperienced. I didn't hear any of this energy or any of these arguments at that point, and it's strange. It's strange that some of the same people that are against this motion were ones that voted in that position in favor of that person being nominated and appointed by the board after the election, and they were not reelected. For more information, that person then was reelected the following year. So the idea that incumbency, this would create an incumbency, well, it did. It did in that case, and there was no argument about that. I would venture to believe that the same people would believe that that was good for the organization. It stabilized the board at the time, whether I agreed with it or not. And I didn't. And so it is, I just think this whole conversation is difficult because it leaves the membership out there listening to us all going, where is the truth in all of this? Where is the actual thing? And with the way the conversation has been going, I would be confused if I was a member, and I apologize to the membership for that. But I stand firmly with my colleagues who think that this motion is a good one for the organization, and that's why I'm in support of it. I'm not in support of it for any other reason. I've never met Felicia, but I do my research as far as what board members bring to the organization, and she by far brings more than brings more to the table as far as her experience than I did when I joined the board. And so look at the possibilities. Here I am going on my third year as president of this organization. And this powerful human being who happens to be a female brings more experience than I did coming into this. I don't know. I ask you to ask the question is, why are people fighting so hard to add another person to this decision-making process?
Thank you. I caught a glimpse of myself. If I'm looking sideways and I seem to have a strangely intense face, I'm just very focused on listening to everyone for the conversation. Can I get unanimous consent to extend the meeting to 9:30 if necessary? Is there any objection? Okay, so we have until 9:30 if we need it. We do not have to use it. Next person is Paxton.
couple of things I want to correct. When we had alternates, they were full board members and ran through full board elections and stuff like that. They just couldn't vote unless somebody didn't show up. So that was that process at that time. We don't have to do this. It is not required by the bylaws. We're choosing to do this. So that's one of the reasons I have problems with it. I personally view this as not listening to the membership. And that's the feedback I've gotten from a lot of people, even tonight, from long-term Fair Family. Anyway, that is one of my concerns about this. I think we're better off going through the regular process. I think that we'd be best to not vote this candidate in, even though I really look forward to working with her in the future if she gets elected. One of the things that we do when we have an election is we have our board retreat. And that's where we all get together and learn who each other is and how well we can work together. That's missing in this situation. Another thing that's missing in this situation, and a reason why I'm voting against this, is it requires a special legal and financial orientations. We get legal and financial orientation either before or at the board retreat, and then we all work together, so we all understand together what we're doing. So this bypasses some of that. I assume that we're going to have a legal and a financial orientation for a new board candidate. That's part of the most important parts that we go through in our orientation, and particularly legal, because that is one of the first things that has to happen immediately. And while we do that at the board retreat, I personally have not been real happy with all of the information that we've been doing there. I'd like to reinforce and do more orientation, because I think we're kind of slacking off on some of the stuff. Anyway, I'm opposed to this motion. I think it's not good for the membership, and we do not have to do it. And that's where I kind of stand on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sandra.
Yeah, I think I too am, I find it very odd, the amount of vitriol that's been behind some of, of this. But, and I also, when people are saying that this is not following process, but this is the process, whether you agree with the process or not, this is the process for filling a vacant director position. And that's it. You can't just add different kinds of requirements in order to be able to implement this bylaw. That's just not how it works. If you don't like the bylaw, then that's a different discussion. It doesn't, and no matter what you do, it doesn't work for tonight. Tonight is we follow the bylaws that we have, not the bylaws that you think you would prefer. And there's a process for doing that, which this one seems to me trying to bypass the whole process of amending the bylaws. Let's just put on extra requirements there and then say that you're not following them, and therefore it's not following process. And so I think that's, I don't think that that's a good idea at all. And I've also heard that it's all about the next vote getter, as if that was the reason that Felicia was being recommended. And I don't believe that that's true. I think that her having gone through the election process showed that there's a lot of support for her in the membership. And so I think that's important. But it isn't, that isn't certainly not the the only reason, or even probably the reason, it's a fact that she was the next vote getter, but I don't think it's the rationale for appointing her. I think that there's other things that, for example, I think business acumen is really important to have that represented on the board. And I think that that's something that George had in spades. What happens when you have your own business and you make decisions about budgets? You're the one who has to pay for it, whether it works or not. So you have a kind of a little bit different way of thinking about things like that, you know, because you've been there. You've been responsible for your decisions. You're not spending other people's money. I don't think it's the only perspective that's valid, you know, in terms of evaluating budget issues, but I think it's an important one to have represented there. And I know George, you know, the idea that it would be disrespectful to George, that one I thought was, you know, George recommended Felicia during the elections. So I do not, you know, and trying to just infer that it was disrespectful to him, that one really bothered me a lot. I don't think that was, you know, that was really out of place. And you know, another thing that I think that is important with Felicia is I think she represents a different age demographic, and which we badly need, you know, and getting younger people to, you know, they are busy living lives. Sometimes it's hard for them to take on the responsibilities of a board that is a lot of work. But she's willing and she's able, and you know, and having a perspective, you know, I think all perspectives are viable, are really necessary, and I think that she fills she fills a demographic that we don't have represented on the board, and expanding to, you know, I think that that's important. So anyway, I'm definitely in favor of this, and you know, I think she'd make an excellent board member, and I think she brings skills to the table that I would like to see represented on the board. You know, so anyway, thank you. I'll be voting for this.
Thank you. Kevin Levy.
Thanks everybody for the discussion. I appreciate it. It's definitely, you know, it's tough. I'm still in support of having Felicia on. Like I said, when it came to me, you know, my first question was, is she okay with this? You know, it was the first one. And then of course it's like, well, you know, I guess why not? Like I said, I don't want that to be, you know, feel like a way that I was not thinking about anyone else or the membership or anything like that. For me, part of my rationale was that she was the next vote getter. It felt like it made sense, it was logical, because that's not very much plucking someone out of the sky. It's really, you know, she was next in line, kind of like John had said earlier. If the position came up free during the elections, she would just be in. And so now this is a different situation. And so it's tough because here we all are. We all care so much about the organization. We want to do what's best for the organization. And it's tough when we all have different opinions about what we feel is best for the organization. That is the worst part of the job, I can tell all of you. So it really is. For me, like I said, you all know I'm pretty positive about things. I try and look at what that is as far as, you know, having Felicia herself. And I think that is a big part of it. She is new to the board. She is new to everything. It is another voice that would help. Yes, we can do it without her. Yes, we can do it with barely any of us. That all, of course, plays. We don't have to do this. No. But again, at what point shouldn't we try something like that or take that opportunity? And for all we know, we'll never see her again after she comes on here. She might not run at all. So, I mean, realistically, I'm just a fan of anyone who wants to be a part of it and wants to jump in there. And so I'm sorry that folks feel that it's disrespectful to them in that manner. And I think that, you know, folks are saying we acted quickly, and of course it really does. After a certain amount of time, it doesn't make sense. But as far as orientation, Paxton's right. There's definitely some legal orientation. We spend about a day on it. Something that, I'm sure she'll be able to make happen as well. When it comes to the board retreats, I still remember back, one of the first board I jumped on was very much in disarray, and the board retreat was great and it was fun. But once we got out of that board retreat, things got different really quick. And so I appreciate that we have that time together, and I'm a part of organizing that time to try and get us all together again. I think it's a nice way I think it'd be a good motivation to maybe try and have another in-person meeting of some sort as soon as possible if she comes on. And I think it's in our best interest to be mentors, to folks and to anyone that wants to be there and make a board that is welcoming. And so I do understand what everybody means process. We should go back and look at the bylaw, then change it around, make sure that when it does, or if this comes up again, there's a different process for it. But I personally just always jump at the opportunity for something like that. So I think it makes sense. But I hope folks are in favor of it. I hope that we, if she gets on, that folks can see that it wasn't a bad thing, that it wasn't actually a pretty good thing that speaks to what we want to do. So thanks, everybody. Try and think of any more.
Thank you. Teresa.
I'll put my hand down.
Okay. Lawrence Taylor.
Thanks. I think it's unfortunate. It's sad that we are in the position that we are in today as a matter of process. But one remarkable thing is this is one of those rare occasions where Heather Kent and I are in complete agreement. And that is when you pull the curtain back, this is about politics. And that was confirmed if you heard and paid attention to Arna's statement that was read by Christine. Was that a significant deciding factor in the board's decision not to fill the vacancy a year ago? Was the political animosity between the obvious choice then and the board majority at that time? And I want to say that while Heather and I don't agree very often, that one thing we do have in common is that we are individuals who stand on principle, and that we have strong principles and that we express them strongly. And so I want to be clear that any of my comments that relate to the vacancy a year ago are about principles involved, the numbers and the facts. They are not about my personal relationship with the fifth place person from a year ago. And the suggestion that I would place my personal relationship with my fiance above my duty to the board is an outrageous slander. And anyone who suggests that really doesn't know me. Okay. So let's move on from that. Let's be clear about the fact that this is politics. And what does politics and faction mean? It's been said that this isn't about factions, but at the same time, it was said that this is a common practice in other boards, a standard nonprofit practice. That, in fact, the idea that standard nonprofit practice has significant application to the Oregon Country Fair Board of Directors is precisely the definition of the political divide. Those who believe that are on one side of the factional divide, and those who believe that the Oregon Country Fair Board of Directors isn't a typical nonprofit board, but rather is the city council of a small virtual community, a municipality, and that we are first and foremost the political representatives of the people. That's the primary fundamental factional difference between those two perspectives. And so everything derives from that difference. Now, there have been a number of things said that weren't accurate. The idea that the fifth place vote getter in the last election would have been the alternate that would have stepped into George's place isn't true. It would have been the fifth place vote getter from the previous year who would have been the alternate that would have stepped into George's place. That's how the alternate system worked. We wouldn't have the alternate system anymore. What we've got is a system where you've got 12 and you can replace or not replace. But the decision not to replace a year ago, I would submit to you, Politics is all that it's about. It was said that you couldn't appoint the fifth place person from a year ago because they hadn't been reelected. All true. However, they got 61% of the vote. 61% of the membership voted for this year's fifth place got 47% of the vote. Last year's fifth place had been elected twice, and in at least one election was the second place vote getter. This year's fifth place, yes, she got 643 votes. Last year's got 744 votes. So again, there's the idea that there was some principle other than simple, straight up factional politics. I don't think the evidence supports that. And if you were paying attention to the last election, you know that there were some really, really unfortunate personal comments made about some of the candidates. And they were made in favor, and they were made in the context of supporting four of the candidates. And talk about burning things down and going backwards. And remember what the membership chose to do.
Point of order. This is getting really, really far from the motion. Can we speak to the motion?
I am speaking to the motion. The motion exists. The motion exists in a context. Okay.
So hold on. LT, let me reply. This is all still. I'm listening very carefully, trying to make sure we all stay civil. But this is all germane to the motion. He is making an argument why this should not be done, and it is agree or disagree with it. It is.
But this is the time to be arguing whether we are voting to approve Felicia or not. This is not the time.
It is also the time to be arguing whether or not this action should be taken at all.
That was during the meeting agenda, Stephen. We're past that.
No, nonsense.
No, that
nonsense.
That is not. The LT, stop. This is not for you to reply on this. No. Any motion can be argued against the action as well as the content. There is absolutely nothing not germane to what LT is saying. I'm doing my best to be, to not over police here, but he is certainly within his rights to be speaking on what he's speaking, and I'm, just trying to make sure it stays civil. But he's germane. Please continue, LT.
Thank you. Clearly, the issue here is not and cannot be about the specific merits of this individual proposed appointee. It is about whether anyone should be appointed. That's always been the issue. The purpose of the agenda discussion was to avoid having to drag all of these details out and in this excruciating manner. I thought that was clear at the time. I still think it's clear. So the point I've been making is this: there were very clear choices given to the membership in the last election, and the membership made a very clear split decision. Two of the candidates endorsed by the folks controlling the majority now were elected. Two of them were not. The split, if you look at the split between the fifth and sixth place, which was 3 votes, both receiving about 47% of the vote. I would submit, I don't think it's a wild conjecture that there was probably not a lot of crossover. That you had one side, you had another side. The membership is split. So the fact that the board itself is skewed to one side, I would submit, is an artifact of previous elections. I look forward to the next election. I think that we'll see how that works out. But I do believe that it is inappropriate to simply establish a new practice at this point. Now, I do think that there's a huge difference between something that we've never done, which is to utilize Article 7, Section 4 and appoint a director and appointing committees, which we've always done. We do all the time. I do think the discussion about the vice presidency when a vice president was a co-vice president was nominated, or I should say elected by the board, who wasn't a director. doesn't have anything to do with this. I would note, however, that discussion was brought up in a manner which I believe discussed and revealed confidential discussions that would have occurred at the board retreat at that time. So I do believe there was a breach of confidentiality that occurred in the course of this meeting, but be that as it may.
Point of order.
Yeah, that's not with the motion.
That was going one way a while there, Stephen. This is getting off the rails.
Yeah, well, it's so let's stick to the motion, LT, and I'd ask you to make it clear too, if you speak about division or factions or other things, that it's your impression or your opinion, even though you said so at the beginning. You
Certainly
can
is.
keep that clear.
No, I think that's important, and I just want to emphasize that I want to emphasize the observations, the observable, and all numerical facts that I believe support my observation. That my observation is not merely a matter of my own presuppositions, but that there are objective facts that I believe support them. I don't believe. I disagree with the use of the term vitriol, which I don't believe. I think vehemence. There are other V words that might be appropriate. I do believe that there are. Well, vitriol was used. Yeah. I'm just objecting. I'm objecting to. I think it misconstrues what the argument is about here. So we've heard from a lot of folks who have been involved in this organization for a lot of decades and who have been intimately involved in the elections that we hold, and they have been, I think, consistently objecting to this entire process. And so I hope everybody gets that this isn't about Felicia at all. In fact, I would say that the mention of her business acumen, which I don't have any reason to doubt, the idea that is an important part of what we do as a board. Well, I'm not sure that that's the case. I think that general capacity for critical thinking, along with a good understanding of this community, is really what it's about. But I think that it's really not the board's place. Again, this is part of that typical nonprofit versus country fair division. Yes, other nonprofits do point directors on the basis of skill sets that the board thinks are important. But I don't think that's who we are. I don't think that's our place. That's for the membership to decide. And so, again, I think it's extraordinarily unfortunate that we're here. It seems to me that there is a failure to recognize the true cost of this, that the benefit of having one additional person on for a few more months, trying to catch up during that course of time versus, and again, I was called out earlier for suggesting that the loss of our membership secretary might have something to do with this. I think it does. I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure everybody sitting here knows it does. Okay. And so,
point of order, this just does not seem to be speaking to the motion.
It is still speaking to the motion. I will ask you not to accuse other people of what their perceptions are of Jeffrey Ramos's resignation.
It's all right. All right.
Any other conversations occurred outside this meeting are irrelevant to what transpires in this meeting, because that's all we know.
Fair enough. All I will say to that, as been said earlier, is that it is extremely unfortunate that the membership is not privy to all discussions pertinent to any motion before the body. I would like to say again that we're better off if each of us is permitted to say what we have to say without constant and unnecessary interruption. But that hopefully, well, again, this is all in the record, and I think the membership can reflect upon whatever the decision is tonight, can reflect upon the reasoning of the various positions, can decide for themselves whether they want to ratify or rectify. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So I've had some hands up and hands down, but I have John Davis, Teresa Vaughn, Trevor Ross, and John Steinhardt on the stack. If I've missed anything from the hands going up and down. And I will remind everyone, I think most people have spoken at this point, and so I'll just remind people the availability to call the question. We are at 9:09 and we've extended till 9:30. This is the last piece of old business. John Davis.
I called the question.
Is there a second? Who seconded it?
AJ.
Okay. Moved by John Davis and seconded by AJ to call the question. We are voting on whether or not to stop talking about this motion and vote on it. A yes vote means to stop talking about it and proceed to a vote. Okay, you look confused, Kevin.
I was trying to think of some kind of cool thing. I was trying to think of some cool thing to say, Stephen, like point of order or point of privilege or something. I'd like to hear what Trevor has to say, if everybody's okay.
Well,
with
that's
that.
so it's not debatable, and once we do
right.
this, you have to vote then against ending the discussion. You have to vote against ending the discussion to hear what the next person
Or
would
if
want
the
to
maker of the
say.
motion would be willing to allow. Is that a thing?
No, it's not a thing.
What?
We just move on.
No.
Okay.
Just vote against calling the question.
Vote against calling the question.
Yeah,
if
vote
that's
against
your
calling the
position.
question. Okay, thanks everyone.
Sandra, this is about ending the discussion. A yes vote means to end the discussion and proceed to a vote.
I'm going.
Or if you say no, then Trevor gets to go, Sandra.
Okay, then I'll do
Sorry,
no.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Kevin.
What's your vote, Sandra?
I said no.
No. Okay. Paxton.
No.
AJ.
No.
Okay. John Davis.
No.
Okay. John Steinhardt.
No.
Okay. John Govsky.
No.
Trevor Ross.
No.
Teresa Vaughn.
No.
Okay. Lawrence Taylor.
No.
Kevin Levy.
No, thanks everyone.
Okay. And Indigo.
No.
Okay.
Stephen, can we move to extend for another 15? Because I think we're going to run out of time.
Is any objection to extending to 9:45 if necessary?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, by unanimous consent, we got till 9:15. Teresa Vaughn. Well, actually, Trevor Ross hasn't spoken yet, have you?
9:45.
9:45.
And Trevor was next, but Trevor hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, Trevor.
All right, thank you guys. I guess first I'd like to acknowledge everybody here. That everybody's very passionate about this, and whether we agree or not on the issue at hand, I am grateful for the conversations that we have, regardless of the emotion. This is a hard job. It's been a steep learning curve for me, and there's a lot in there. I have a prepared statement. I want people to kind of walk with me on the logic. I'm hoping I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not trying to point fingers. This is a personal statement, and I'll be brief. And this is just something I needed to get out there. An appointment of this juncture seems prudent and necessary. That past boards have not chosen or neglected to use the appointment provisions of our bylaws are moot. Desuetude aside, we are here today grappling with the loss of a member which gave much to this organization. George's passing is a chasm of loss to his family, this organization, and the board of directors. To carry on without appointment leaves us less whole. Our bylaws are clear, with appointment and removal of its directors. While there is an argument to wait until the elections to fill the gap democratically, would the same argument stand for a removal? Both of these powers reside in the hands of the elected directors. What is being asked of us leaves only one hand, the authority to remove. Personally, I view our appointment powers as a positive to the organization that is built on inclusion and love. Thank you.
Thank you. John Steiner, you haven't spoken to this motion yet, have you?
No.
I don't have you on the list. You go next.
Okay, so there's a lot of things to respond to here. I'll try to keep it quick. You know, one of my biggest worries about the Oregon Country Fair is all this rhetoric of division could destroy the organization, and I really like to not have that. One of the things that's been something I've stood for since I've been on the board is that each board gets to make its own decisions. I've tried to make sure that the boards that I've sat on have not passed motions that told other boards in the future what they had to do. That hasn't worked out well for us. So I respect the history, but I think as this unique set of people on the board, we get to make our own decisions. There's a lot of cherry picking of information that's gone into everything we've heard tonight. But fundamentally, I have not heard anybody speak against Felicia. We got a number of emails of support to her in the board about her to the board. Number of people spoke in her favor tonight. It kind of seems like the choice is vote for Felicia or vote against using the bylaws. And I'm going to vote for Alicia personally. Part of my reason for that is that we actually do need more people to do work on the board. A lot of people may not realize it, but we're a volunteer board. A couple of people like Sandra and I are actually like at a point in our lives where we can put too much time into this, but there's a lot of work and I could use some help. Go back and watch the guidelines meeting and see who actually put work into the guidelines. It was, dozens and dozens of hours of work, and I'd certainly like to get offloaded on some of this stuff. And I know that not everybody on the board has the time to do that. So I'd love some additional help. And as far as the process goes, we have process. That's how we got our bylaws. I respect the process. I respect that the membership has given us this set of bylaws, and I'm happy to go abide by them. I'm actually really surprised to hear tonight that the bylaws committee is reviewing this, because they're a board committee and I have no recollection of the board assigning them this task yet. I'm a little, I think it was, I'm not happy with somebody saying that it was sorry about that it would be disrespectful to George. I don't know where that comes from. I know that George supported Felicia, and I've actually spoken to the new leader of the Ritz about this, who said that he thinks that George would be in favor of this. So granted, Jim didn't know either, but that's the way it is. During my time on the board, elected members have missed retreats. Some people have had outside life commitments and haven't been able to make it. And there is a separate orientation that Kirsten does for new board members. And I kind of remember mine pretty quickly, because Kirsten's like, you know all this stuff already, don't you? And it's like, yeah, we're done. I'm already on enough boards. But all of the legal and financial stuff is handled twice. So I'm not worried about Felicia getting that information. I'm not worried about the democracy thing either. We are the democratically elected governing body of this board, and the members elected us and gave us certain authorities, and one of them is this particular provision of the bylaws. Maybe I'm blinked at the wrong time, but I was on the board when Tom resigned, and I have no recollection of any discussion about whether or not to appoint a replacement. And as far as Felicia getting an incumbent advantage, if she does such a good job that she gets reelected, I think that's great for the organization. And I'm also not really I'm uncomfortable with the way several people have said, basically imply that the board isn't transparent and that we're doing secret things on our board mailing list about this. In prior boards, when these people were on the board, they just had unannounced closed meetings on a regular basis, which probably did the same thing as the board mailing list. So pretending that our talking amongst ourselves is different than the way it used to be, I don't think is correct. And the reason why, since it came up that John Alexander isn't up for appointment here, is because nobody made a motion to appoint him. There could have been a motion to do it, and there's actually no requirement in the bylaws that we appoint the next person in line after the election. I mean, quite frankly, if I had gotten an email from the Dalai Lama expressing an interest to be on the board, I'd probably support that. That'd be pretty darn cool. But that didn't happen. So the reason why people haven't been appointed in the past is because nobody's made a motion to do it. You know, what can I say? You know, after the, yeah, so anyway, yeah, I'm going to support Felicia. I'd like the additional help on the board. I think she'd be good. And I don't think this is disrespectful to anybody. I think this is good for the organization to have people willing to stand up and volunteer and help. And I really support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa.
I'd like to call the question.
I'll second that.
Moved by Teresa and seconded by Sandra. We are voting on whether or not to end discussion. Sandra, a yes vote means we stop talking about it and vote on the motion.
Yes.
Paxton.
No.
AJ.
Yes.
John Davis.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
John Govsky.
Yes.
Trevor Ross.
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn.
Yes.
Lawrence Taylor.
Yes.
Kevin Levy.
Yes.
And Indigo.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion passes with Paxton voting no. We are voting on the appointment. Sandra.
Yes. Yes to appoint Felicia.
Yes to appoint Felicia. Yes vote means to appoint Felicia. Paxton.
No. Process.
AJ.
Yes.
John Davis.
Yes to appoint Felicia.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
John Govsky.
No.
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 Trevor Ross.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
LT.
No.
Kevin Levy.
Yes.
And Indigo.
No. Process.
Two-thirds is still 8, correct?
No, it's a simple
This
majority.
is a simple majority in the bylaws.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I forgot about that. Okay, so the motion passes with Paxton, John Govsky, Lawrence Taylor, and Indigo voting no. And that concludes that motion. And the last item has been moved, postponed until the next meeting. New business is to approve the 2026 logo item sponsored by AJ, Sandra, and Kevin. There is a board work session Monday, March 9th, 2026 at 7 p.m. via Zoom. The topic is bylaws and membership. The next board meeting is Monday, April 6th, 2026 at 7 p.m. via Zoom. Can we forego the meeting evaluation and move to President's Piece?
Yes.
How much time do you want to spend? Okay. President's Piece.
Yeah. Welcome, Felicia. And I look forward to working with you. I want to spend just 1 minute to give you space. I acknowledge that it's been a difficult night probably to sit through. So I give you the floor for the President's Piece tonight.
Wow. Thank you, AJ. And thank you everybody for being here tonight. It's really neat to see how passionate everybody is about their piece. So yes, thank you. And that was hard to sit through, but it's necessary, you know. I want to hear what everybody has to say. So thank you all for sharing. I want to send blessings to Indigo and everybody that's out of the country right now. Everybody whose families are affected by this, and everybody that's afraid, you know. So thank you for welcoming me in here. And yeah, like I want to echo LT in saying that this is about love, you know, so we can bring forth that. I would love to hear more about, you know, why the bylaws should be changed, right? This is kind of a neat start into examining that. So with that, I guess I'll kick it back to AJ. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Felicia. And lastly, I will give just love to George. I miss him. He was a mentor to me, and just a good man. And so, Felicia, you step in the shoes of a great man, with all his beautiful things that he brought and all his faults, all the things that was George. I hope this organization never forgets him and never forgets what he brought to us. Thank you all for being here tonight. Love, peace, and respect. Hug your family and have a good night.
And with that, the March board meeting of the Oregon Country Fair in 2026 will adjourn.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Stephen. Tough meeting for you.
Thanks, everybody. Good
Bye.
work, Stephen. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
Well,
all.